My name's Jack Butler. I took part in the Sun Trip in 2018 and in 2024. I think for me the start of cycling was actually being a bike courier a long time ago in the early days of these like delivery apps many years ago, and that's kind of what got me into cycling. And back then, you know, we were like a tight-knit group in our city, and we all had a bunch of money from the early days of the courier stuff. So we would all go on bike holidays and bike trips. And I remember the first time I went bike touring was across the Netherlands, because this is like an easy bike tour trip. And yeah, from there I was kind of hooked. That was all of the start of it for me. Yeah, I've done quite a lot of tours, a lot on upright, now also on recumbent. So I have like a good mix of everything. Yeah, before 2018 Sun Trip, I did big trips. I've done a lot of trips around Spain because it's like very cycle touring friendly. Like life is easy there. The weather is very forgiving, and in Mallorca as well. Yeah, Spain and Mallorca and these kind of like common cycle touring trips, and that was with like you know, panniers and a normal touring bike. And yeah, and then I signed up to the Sun Trip in 2018 again on an upright bike with I had a trailer and a really cheap solar panel. It was like a super budget build. I was traveling in the US and I was doing couch surfing, and I ended up staying with a guy who was like a dealer for Surly, who gave me like a Surly bike frame at like almost no cost. So really that's what enabled me to do 2018, and 2018 was from France to China, so that was like a next level trip, you know. It's not cycling around Spain anymore. I think the main thing in 2018 was I'd done a lot of like traveling, like on foot, not cycle traveling, and I was really trying to reduce the carbon footprint. And actually, the Sun Trip is I always followed it since like 2013 and 2015 in the early days with the loops in Turkey and Kazakhstan. And it just made perfect sense. It's like, I want to go to Asia. I don't want to use a plane. I don't want to waste carbon flying. I want to do a Sun Trip one day. These two things are perfect. Like, let's go to China. So yeah, that was the like push to get me in on 2018. After the 2018 Sun Trip, we had like a special visa because of the cooperation between the Sun Trip organization and like the local government in Guangzhou. So we had a longer visa than I could normally ever get. So I really wanted to make the most of it. So I stayed right until the end of the visa. I like lived for a couple months in a town called Yangshuo and traveled around a little bit. And yeah, it's super nice. Like rural China is really nice to travel around. And then on the way back, we didn't have the bikes anymore. They were like returned to Europe with the Sun Trip. So I traveled by land on the way back. They took the high-speed train across China and then the bus through Kazakhstan and the old Soviet trains in Kazakhstan, eventually slowly getting the way back. I say slowly, but after you've cycled there, like it's all quite easy when you're on a bus and a train. Yeah, I mean, certainly for these like long distance trips and for a Sun Trip, a recumbent is the correct choice. It's the choice I would have made in previous years if I'd had the chance. If there's like a spectrum of a length of a trip where there's one point where an upright bike makes sense, like maybe if you're in the Netherlands and you want to go like on a train and off a train and on a bus and pack it in a box and take it out of a box. But then there's a certain length of trip where the recumbent is purpose built to be on the recumbent, you know. It's a form of bicycle transport that is like so suitable for like long distance. It just makes so much more sense because even though I'm young and you know I'm happy to be on a road bike, I can survive all the problems that being on an upright bike or an upright touring bike would give you, you know, wrists and neck and back and everything. But when you take somebody who is capable of taking these strains of a normal bike and then you go on a recumbent, there's a whole nother level unlocked of distance and places you can go. Yeah, it's really like the difference between a local bus and a high-speed train. The recumbent is the high-speed train. You really can go places. I think it even started before 2018. I was already interested in having a recumbent because that's kind of in the Sun Trip world, it's kind of normal and they lend themselves really well to the mounting and also having the luggage. So we tried to contact a company called Nazca. They make like I don't think they're around anymore, but they made like steel recumbent bikes, touring recumbent bikes. And we ended up, me and a friend, we ended up contacting them before the 2020 Sun Trip, or what would have been the 2020 Sun Trip. And we got in touch, but when they replied back, I think we didn't respond fast enough. There was maybe 1 week or 10 days where we didn't respond and they withdrew the sponsorship offer. So then we were like, whoa, okay, maybe this is not the best idea. And we ended up getting in touch with AZUB, and because really they were the only choices. These two companies for us were the only choices for the right Sun Trip bikes, and they needed to be real made for touring bikes, and also able to like handle the weirdness that is a Sun Trip. You know, easy to repair and easy to build, and also easy to modify with a kind of a common sense frame structure. So the natural choice was then to speak to AZUB, who fortunately were nicer and ended up ready to support us for 2020. Obviously in 2020 the Sun Trip didn't happen, and then eventually it came back round to 2024 when I got back into the Sun Trip again, and yeah, on my nice AZUB 6. So from originally when we got the AZUB bikes, we kind of had just a real basic spec because I was going to build a lot of the things were going to get changed, and I was going to build a lot of the stuff myself. In the end, we decided that we were going to use, or I decided I was going to use a front hub motor, as small as possible, a direct drive motor, the smallest, lightest hub motor I could find. The battery is then like underslung in the center of the frame, which is really nice. On these bikes, you have like space between the wheels to keep the center of gravity low. It's like 1,000 watt hours or a little bit less. The good thing is because you have like one oversized frame all the way through the bike, it's quite easy if you take the dimensions, you can build like mounting points and things. So we had the two solar mounts on the front and back of the bike, and then the straps to support left and right. And yeah, it's a really good platform for modification. Really, I changed the back wheel and built a new wheel with a roll-off, which was from another sponsor, thankfully. So it's once you have that, especially if you like have internally geared hub, it's a super reliable platform, really, because it's not really a lot that can go wrong at that point, as long as you keep on top of looking after it. But yeah, it works really good. I think the motor we used was a Crystalite G40 or G25. I can't remember. The different numbers are just like different windings. I think it's a G40, the faster one, or G30. Yeah, I think it's about 4.5 kilos. Again, testing the limits. It's definitely less than 6 kilos because I didn't want to go too heavy. Kind of the design philosophy for me on the Sun Trips is I want to be able to ride the bike, and the motor is extra. I think it gives you a lot of flexibility. I mean, I'm biased because I'm young and I'm strong and I'm fit, so I can get away with it. But it gives you a lot of flexibility if you don't need the solar and you don't need the motor. It doesn't matter if you can still do 200 kilometers, or at least 150 in the worst case, and everything is turned off. Then as long as you keep moving, you get there eventually. Yeah, so entering in 2024, I was really, I wanted to do as well as I could do, but I really thought there was a ceiling to that. Jean-Marc, the previous Sun Trip champion from the Sun Trip Europe, in the Velomobile that he had, it's like an amazing machine, and I thought for sure he was going to win. And also Kilian and Jonas on the other AZUB, the AZUB Twin, which is basically like my bike but double length. I really thought they were going to be faster than me as well. So my goal was I wanted to be on the podium. I wanted to get that third place at the beginning. I kind of said to myself at the beginning, because the route starts in Lyon and comes over the Pyrenees, and the one advantage I had is that I was lighter than everybody. It was the lightest bike in the race, without like the camping luggage and stuff, just like the bike with its like empty bags. Mine was 49 kilos, which is a lot, even for a touring bike, but it was the lightest by at least 15 or 20 kilos compared to everybody else. And I also know that I had much less luggage than other people. It was absolute bare minimum tools, bare minimum everything. So my idea was, I'm the lightest, it's the only thing I've got in my favor. If I get over the Pyrenees before the fast guys, then I'm gonna go for it. If I'm in 10th place when I'm over the Pyrenees, I know that like, okay, yeah, I can push myself, but perhaps I'm gonna be pushing into a wall. And thankfully I was first over the Pyrenees, so that's what motivated me to keep going. I was on like day 3 or something like that, and then I was like, okay, maybe there's a chance here. Yeah, from day one it was a race for Jean-Marc, but day 1, 2 and 3 I didn't think it was. For me, Jean-Marc was not touchable. Like, he wasn't in the same race as me. Like, he was going to win, and I was fighting with Kilian and Jonas or some unknown other person that I wasn't ready for. I was fighting to be on the podium for 3rd place. And on day 1, I got ahead of Kilian and Jonas, which was surprising. I kind of thought maybe they had like technical issues or something, but once I was ahead of them on day 1, I was ahead of them for the rest of the race. Whereas Jean-Marc, I think the organizer of the Sun Trip said the 1st and 2nd place, it was the most swapping between 1st and 2nd place ever in a Sun Trip history. I was really struggling to hang on. yeah, arriving in Chambéry after all the time, like basically fighting to like stay in the running, and eventually winning the Sun Trip. Yeah, it was kind of surreal, really, because while it seems like a long time, it's like a month of riding 14 hours a day every single day. It also felt kind of fast. Like it felt like 2 minutes ago we were in the Sahara Desert, and now we're in France in the Alps, basically. It kind of just went by a flash. Yeah, and it's unbelievable. It's a dream of mine to win the Sun Trip. I didn't think it was gonna be even possible for me. I thought if there was any year that I was gonna do it, it would be this year. Because I'd cycled in Morocco before. I was light. I'm quite strong at the moment. So I thought if there was going to be any year, it was this one. And to actually do it, oh, it's amazing. I was so happy. I was so happy. I couldn't believe it. It was kind of like, yeah, even the last day, we were struggling for first and second place 3 days before the end. Like it was still, nobody had any idea who was going to finish first. So it only became real for me like when I had 100 kilometers left and I was still in the lead, and I'm like constantly doing the maths. I was like, okay, this could be real now. I can't remember the daily average. There was a chart that the Sun Trip made that showed everything, but yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to do at least 200 kilometers every day. I mean, 300 kilometers is better if you have really good conditions and it's flat and there's tailwind or the sun. Yeah, I think the longest was 380 or 360 kilometers or something like this. But it's for me, the game was just move as long as possible. Like every single day, there's a time limit you're allowed to ride. You've got 14 hours where you can be moving, and my goal was always just keep moving. Yeah, I could go faster. Yeah, I think if I was being pulled, even more, I could have definitely gone faster. You can see on the statistics at the beginning of the race, there's like an hour missing of the moving time, or 2 hours missing on one day, and the second half of the race, my best moving time. This is like physically cycling along with the bike. We're allowed 14 hours, and my best moving time was 13 hours and 52 minutes or something. I'd stopped for 8 minutes in a 14-hour day. If I'd done that from the beginning, I would have been like, what, maybe 12, 20 hours ahead. I would have finished a day earlier, or 2 days earlier even. So the kind of the daily game was, that's the good thing about having some battery on the bike, is you can manipulate your speed. So I would always get towards the end of the day and start like, the phone's here on the dashboard, and figuring out the maths of like, how far do I think I can get? Try and find an accommodation, because it's much faster than camping. It saves a lot of time, and time is everything. How far do I think I can get? And then work out the average speed I need to do, and then use the motor and myself just to do exactly the average speed. So I don't arrive any earlier or any later than necessary, because if I'm going faster, I'm just wasting power to the wind. And if I'm going slower, I'm going to miss the time cutoff. Maybe there's an option. There would have been an option to go faster, but really you have to balance. There's a certain speed where you're going too slow where the motor's inefficient, but really as like a normal cyclist without a motor on a bike, you're just fighting the wind. So you're going to arrive at the same place. The faster you get there, the more energy you've used to do it. So it's really like, for me and Jean-Marc, it was really the battle of the tortoise and the hare. I was just trying to crawl along and have at least losses as possible. Yeah, I'd like some plans in the future with that. Maybe another Sun Trip, maybe another trip of my own. But yeah, I'd be really interested in when the Sun Trip starts going east again, when it goes to China or some other new Sun Trip idea. You never know what's coming. But even I'd like to cycle on Recumbent myself back to Asia again. That would be a really fun trip. Yeah, let's see.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks to you, mate.